Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to this webinar, which will cover the subject of art direction. My name is Matteo Bianchi. I'm the director of Matteo Bianchi Studio, and we are a quite multidisciplinary studio which does interior design, product design, and also direction. That's why we're very, very keen about this subject. So today, what I will do with you guys, I will cover all the important aspects of our direction, what it is. I will share some examples. I will share our journey as art director, because it's been quite an amazing journey, and perhaps give you some tips at the end. So if you're thinking to get an art director on board, perhaps you should really follow those advice, because it will really help to understand when is a good time and what kind of art director you may take on board. So without further ado, let me share the screen to our presentation. Let me go right at the beginning. Here we are. So the importance of art direction. To me, art direction is crucial for every brand. I really believe that every single brand should have an art director. And I'll tell you why. Well, if we have to sort of confine a role and a phrase for an art director, well, they're responsible for a lot, because they develop the strategy, the brand, the company vision. They really understand and sort of roll out the style of the company, and they're engaging every single thing that goes out of that company, from the images in magazine, newspaper, product, collection, social media. So to me, the art director is almost like a maestro, because if you think about it, every single player cannot play any instrument without a maestro in the background, really leading the orchestra, leading the company, leading that brand on what to do and how to do it. I also like to bring on the table the phrase from Walt Disney, because according to Walt Disney, to run a successful company, you need to be a dreamer, a critic, and a realist. And to me, the art directors is those three personas at the same time, because you really need to dream out loud. You really need to be very, very creative. But at the same time, every day you need to face the reality about what the budget is, what the market is all about, what the salespeople are telling you. And at the same time, you need to be very, very analytical. You need to really keep improving, being your worst judge if you want, because that's how you're going to push the brand even further. Another good example is the head chef. So the head chef is the person that doesn't really cook every single day, but the head chef is responsible for a lot of things that goes around the restaurant, from the table setting, managing the staff, managing suppliers, the manager, the press, if there is anything, the food presentation. Ultimately is the vision of the chef that will get that beautiful plate out into the restaurant, and all the logistics. So the chef is a really key person of the whole restaurant, and I can't imagine a successful restaurant without a clever head chef. So let's bring this into our industry, and we can really understand what the art director is all about, because the art director is responsible for the story. Now, we know that nowadays, if the brand doesn't have a strong story, a strong background, something to tell, something that will tell the customer what they don't know, is not going to go far. At the same time, the art director is responsible for the right product for the right market. And it doesn't mean that the art director needs to design every single thing, but he or she will get the right designers on board, because the art director is all about listening and really getting the best team around it. Social media, what sort of tone of voice, what sort of rhythm, what sort of images should we use, what it goes through the art direction. Catalogs is crucial. And we face this in our studio every day, because as soon as we've got a salesman coming into our studio, and that salesperson will show, the product, what the company is all about, we can tell straight away from the way the catalog is written, presented, designed, whether there's an art director on board or not. And it's not just about very, very picky or snobby, if you want. It's, there's an art director, it's not going to be very good. It's very clear, because, if there isn't a logic, if there isn't some sort of an inspiring language behind that catalog, well, we're not going to get inspired. And guess what? We will prefer those companies, those brands, those companies, those products which would be well designed and well explained. So that's why I said before, every single company should really invest in a director, because you can have a fantastic company, you can have a fantastic background, fantastic product, but if it's not well communicated, you're not really going to inspire your specifiers, in our case, interior designers and architect, and it could just be a waste of time and money. So that's why catalogs are so important, to be fantastically and well directed. Exhibition, crucial, because whenever you exhibit, you probably have 30 seconds to really attract that person, that passes by. And what I'm trying to say, that every single exhibition stand should be very different. You need to really catch the attention of that customer passing by. And then once you catch the attention, that customer hopefully will come, the visitor will come into your stand, and then you'll be able to really sort of express and sell your brand. Point of sale. If your brand has a physical place where it sells your product, then you really need to make sure that whatever happens in reality in the point of sale will be very consistent, would be quite appropriate on what you did on your social media, on your catalog, for instance. And salespeople, well, this is probably one of the most important points, because the art director needs to follow the sales feedback. Rather than follow, perhaps I should say cooperate, and really listen what the salespeople are telling you, because the salespeople are those ones that have the reality of the market. They are those people who really, really face their customers all the time. So there's an interesting collaboration with the salespeople, because we can tell them what we think is the right way to do it. They will execute it and they feedback us on what the market was telling us. And I will never ever forget the very first time I presented our ideas for our direction to the sales team. They were all looking at me, and I could see from their face, they say, well, I really like your ideas, but you better be right, dude, because if this doesn't sell, guess what? My company will be in trouble. My family will be in trouble. So I could really feel the weight, the responsibility of giving them something that they had to work, but that's probably first of all, it's a reality, and it's a challenge and the pleasure of being an art director. Now, the next part of the webinar will be sharing of some examples that to me are really a good example of art direction. The very first one is Mooi. It's a Dutch furniture brand, leading the market. It's been around for 20 years. But we all forget, now that they're very, very successful, how clever they were, how avant-garde, how they pioneered the interior design and product market. Because that's their motto at the moment, is a life extraordinary. And as a customer, as a consumer, I can say it is extraordinary. Everything they do is just out of the ordinary. It's brilliant, it's beautiful, it's fantastic. But we need to give them credit, because about 20 years ago, they came out with one of their first products. It was the big full-size hose with a lampshade on the top. And they had so much courage, resilient, long-term vision to really go under the skin of the design industry. That they really thought that the interior design market was missing for something quite iconic. You would place that horse in any room, in any lounge, in any reception, and that horse will be a talking point. It will be something that wouldn't make you unnoticed. That horse will be something that you will really get a reaction. And they really stuck to their guns. They really follow this long-term vision. And nowadays, they really keep doing their best. So every single exhibition they do is just almost like art. It's an art exhibition, if you want. Every single product they launch is beautifully shot. You can really feel the atmosphere of that light fitting. You can really immerse yourself of what that product will do for your project. The second example I like to share is a London-based company. It's called Buster and Punch. And to me, this is just genius, because what this company manufactures and sells are light switches and ironmongery handles. And I had this fantastic idea, the fantastic vision to really understand that every single project that we do requires a light switch. And you know that it's light switch and all this sort of industry and ironmongery used to be very old-fashioned, very obsolete, something more for the trade really, not for the design market. But they realized and they understood and had a fantastic art direction behind it to really communicate that a light switch it could actually be a piece of art. You know, by the moment you really create a beautiful metal plate, a wonderful switch around it or a dimmer, and then a beautiful screw where all of a sudden the light switch is something to look at it. It's almost like the feature of that wall. You don't really need anything else. White wall and a beautiful light switch, and it just makes sense. But they were the very first one to innovate, and now they're absolutely leading the market. So they did that. And the second part of the core business is ironmongery handles. Again, every single door will require a handle, and no one was really focused on that. And they did it. But they're not just giving a beautiful product. It's the way they communicate, the way the delivery happens, because behind this picture, you can see the package. Now, that is the package you receive when you buy one of those products. So you just open the little package, beautifully designed. It's got a molded sort of cutout for the handle to sit on it. It's just magic, and that's the best part of having a really good art direction behind it. You have, first of all, you think about the strategy, you develop the product, you get fantastic communication behind it. But then when the product gets delivered, well, the packaging is another surprise. And that's how you really go under the skin of your consumers and customers. And, excuse me. Once you establish a brand, then you can really expand the product. You can really expand something similar to your core business. So after that, I decided to do light fitting, light pendant, very successful. They can offer you a holder with the same sort of look and feel for your whiskey tumblers. They're very good at collaboration, which is another good aspect of being a really good art director. You start collaborating with other brands. So at the bottom left here, they did this beautiful cabinet, drinks cabinet in collaboration with Harrods. And on the bottom right here, they did a limited edition of motorcycles with Ducati. Chapeau. Really, 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 really clever and smart way of doing art direction. The third example is a company based in the sort of northern part of Italy. It's called Super Yoni. And I have a lot of respect for this brand because they managed to bring a very old-fashioned way to manufacture tiles into the modern age, into this century. So this is a company that has been manufacturing for 3 generations the old-fashioned cotto tiles. Those tiles that by nature would not be even, those tiles that they need a lot of preparation, they need to be baked in a kiln for a few days, left to dry. Is not the typical old-fashioned terracotta tiles. And the third generation, 2 very smart and courageous brothers, got an art director on board, and they're just rocking the boat because they had a fantastic vision together with the art director. So you can see how those cotto tiles are now, they're just, you can place them anywhere because they managed to really twist that product and give a fantastic touch into it. The product was the same. It's the look, the feel, the structure, the size, the format, the communication that makes it really, really magic. And we met this company 5 years ago when we were designing quite a different spa. This is a wine therapy spa that we designed in Chelsea, which means that you'll be able to bath yourself in red wine, something that the Romans apparently used to do quite a lot. So the brief was to create something with an old-fashioned look, something that would take you back in time with a modern touch. So I met those guys and I asked them, would you be able to, get those terracotta-looking tiles that cut on a black and white pattern And they were very, very smart, very quick, very open to follow our ideas. And they manufacture with any problems those tiles, which, by the way, are perfect because they got a lot of anti-slippery requirements because they're not even by nature. So really, 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 really smart brands. And then you can see here what our direction will give you in the long run. Once you really understand how far you can go, once you establish that product into the market, well, guess what? You're going to lead that market. So nowadays, you start seeing on lots of magazines, that the tiles are back into fashion. You can see that you can use the old-fashioned terracotta tiles on your splashback, or perhaps they are the real prima donna, the really feature wall of your space. So very good example of something that has been there for a long time. You know, the company that had the knowledge, the know-how, if you want, they knew how to do it. They had this product, but at the same time, you know, how can you turn it around? Well, they had a fantastic art director on board, and together they worked to really flip the industry out and inside out. They really managed to get a product and lead that particular market. So the next part of this webinar is our experience, our journey really as art director. So 3 years ago, we had the pleasure to be appointed as art director of a company called Baboon. Baboon is a company which prints vinyl wallpaper. And when we got this brand on board, it was completely different. So this was what the brand was called. It was called Les Nuances. This was the very first page of the catalogue. And the front of the catalog, sorry, and these were the very first pages of the catalog. So it was very sterile, very technical, not inspiring at all. And so we came on board, and we had to make sure that, you know, we will create a completely different feeling. We really, you know, our challenge was design something that our market required. You know, interior designers and architects are quite peculiar. We need to get excited before we really fall in love with the brand, before we really present that brand and that product in front of our customer. By the way, this is a massive organization, and actually this is a very good example of a company who had an incredible know-how because they've been printing vinyl wallpaper for another business for 40 years. They had an incredible structure. They called a massive floor full of printers that could just take any orders on board. So a very, very good example. You know how to do it, you got a structure, but the way you communicate, the way you really want to interact with your consumers, the way you're going to inspire your customers and your target market, that's a different case. You need probably an external person to take the lead for that. So how do we work when we get an art direction client on board? Well, first of all, we look at their company values. Values are something which is very dear to us, almost something non-negotiable. So if the company has got already some values, well, we really analyze them. If the company doesn't have any values, then we ask the directors, the owners of that company, and we're trying to understand what really drives them. You know, what's the force behind the company? You know, if they had to really show or pick 3 or 5 values, what would that be? So it's very, very important to start from, you know, the sort of personal values of people behind the company. Then we look at the company advantages. In this case, the know-how, the fact they could take any kind of quantity on board. And then we do a SWOT analysis, which is SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So in other words, what they're really good at, what they need to improve, what's the opportunity in the market out there, and what are the threats out there. So to give you an example and to be completely transparent with you guys today, those were the values that the people behind the company were sharing. So courage was very important from them, simplicity, beautiful, you know, they're very hard work, but very simple in a good way. People, resilient and never ever give up, fantastic, very horizontal. They had a passion for those brands that could be very horizontal, meaning that you could target a teenager or an older person. It could work for the high-end market, for the entry-level market. So the horizontal aspect for them was very, very important. And innovation, they really wanted to innovate. They didn't know how to do it. So we came on board and we like to use this system from Simon Sinek. It's a way to really understand, to go to how you can go to the essence of the brand, you know, rather than say what you do and how and why, well, you turn around it. And you always start thinking about the why. Why do you do what you do? You know, why people should really buy your product. So in this particular case, we analyzed the market and we realized that some manufacturers of wallpaper were focusing on the contract market, you know, that market that needs a lot of meters to sort of make sense, and some others which were focused on the future wall, you know, that small quantity that will kind of change a very small space. So for us, the why behind it was to find a brand, a product, some graphics that could go for both market, something that you can apply for a small part of a space, but also something you can apply for a large quantity, like a hotel, a big restaurant, a big office, you name it. How? Well, our interpretation was through service and speed, because the market is very, very fast, and interior designers and architects always have the pressure to present to the client as soon as they can. And what they do, well, they print vinyl wallpaper. They've printed for a long time, and they print it very, very well. So that's how Baboon was invented. Even the name has got quite a long story, but I will not share it today because it will take quite a long time. And the tagline we came out was not just a wall covering, because our vision, our idea was to create a brand that should become a lifestyle very, very soon. And at the same time, we really wanted to interact with the target market, go a bit more emotional with that, rather than just say, hey, here's another wallpaper brand on the market. So when I say lifestyle brand, our vision was to create a brand that you can actually almost wear it. And as a matter of fact, 1 year later, after the launch, we create those socks with the same pattern of the wallpaper that you can actually wear it. And when we said about interaction, making more emotional, this is the very first sketch and the very first stand of when the brand was launched. It was January 2018. It was during Maison Objet in Paris. So for us, the way to get a bit more of interaction from the exhibition, from our target passing by, was to create a series of arches. You would enter, and there was a bit of a curiosity, interaction behind it, because every single arch will open to curved walls around it. So you will see the wallpaper in a different way. It wasn't just a big catalog and the wallpaper on a big wall. It was, you know, we had to get a bit more emotional and, you know, get the consumers, get the passers-by to discover what was around the corner. And those are the pictures from that stand that you can see from here. You were almost attracted by the end of it. And by the time you were getting into these different arches, we have a curve wall that we show you, you know, the wallpaper, pendant on top, and a series of accessories, just to make you wonder a bit, just to really make you think, well, this is a bit different. What is it? Let me ask, let me understand. And that's how you go under your skin when you launch of a potential customer, when you launch a brand. Then we finished the exhibition and it went very well. And for us was a time to really show how big the company was, to show the structure, to show that it wasn't just a small player. You know, there was the know-how behind it, there was a structure, there was quite a big company, and that was the moment that we could reassure those people that came to the stand that, you know, they could trust the brand, because although it was a young brand, behind it was a big structure. I'm going to share a video that we did at that time that shows what I'm trying to say. Let me stop sharing this and share a small video. So that's how we communicate it. So there was the kind of the second strategic step. You launch a brand, you show how reliable, how big the company is behind it. And then it was time to really expand the collection. Again, we listened to the salespeople, and they were telling us that the customer were really liking the brand, the innovation, the fact there was a different brand. But they really needed, the big fat catalog. They really needed something that they could present and they could see quite well into the library. So in September, that September of the year in 2018, we started to work on the next catalog. And we started to really think a bit deeper, what works really well when it comes to vinyl wallpaper. So we realized that the black and white is actually, it works very, very well. And we're starting to just get other designers on board. We're starting to think, okay, who could be a really good match for the brand? We've done quite a lot of collections, but we need to expand the designer's portfolio. So it was time to think about the new catalog. And because we are actually consumers as well, we are clients, we're interior designers as well. So it's quite useful for us to use half of the brains and understand and think how the marketing should work. But at the same time, it's quite easy for us to receive that message because it's something that we would apply every single day. So designers and architects always think on a landscape version, because whenever there is a space, usually the space is larger rather than being taller. So we think in landscape. And we thought that the catalog should have the landscape look, should have the landscape version. And as designers, we get excited about texture, about colors, about format, about, that sort of, we get a reaction, an emotional reaction. So that's how we designed the new catalog. It was landscape, big format on an A3. And the very first time that you would just turn the page, you would sort of almost like dive into that pattern. Whether you like it or not, it's a different story, because you had lots of patterns around it, lots of graphics around it. But at least you'll be able to fantasize, okay, well, that could work for that particular project. Oh, I can't wait to have that project perfect for this. So we worked on this, and that was the rationale behind it. And then you would turn the page, and it would be a 3D image and different color variation. So once again, it was the time to get a big catalog. It was a gigantic exercise. We got 15 designers on board, and those are some of the names of our designers' colleagues. And we're very pleased with the results. So I'll just share some images of the catalog you can see, because also this gives you an idea of what I was saying before and our initial vision, something that could work for small spaces, but also for big spaces. So for instance, this black and white dark horses, that's what it's called, could work very well as a backdrop of an office. We've got the lanterns here that could work very well for a gym, or perhaps for a big hotel. And then we started to look what we think was missing in the market. And we realized when it comes to kids' bedroom wallpaper, the market, the supply was quite scarce. So we thought, okay, well, maybe it's time to bring a bit of some graphics, some small or big collection, and that could really fill out the market of kids' bedroom. So that was, how we sort of initially sketched, and that's how at the end the Metropolitan Zoo was born. The next step that we did for our new catalog was really trying to understand how emotional an image can be, because, and again, I'm talking as an interior designer, whenever I see a beautiful shot, I can really see the lifestyle of a particular target market or a particular project, then I'm absolutely sold. So back to the kids' bedroom, to the kids' market, we thought that we really needed a picture that would just show and perhaps suggest our colleagues that the kids' bedroom could be more fun, they could have more personality, and it could work very, very well for that project. So we got a photographer on board, and we organized 5 different photo shoots to really show how the wallpaper could work with the setting. And this was a fantastic exercise because we started to collaborate. So I'm sure you can, you can recognize, some of the furniture in here. And it was beautiful to start working with other brands, do co-marketing, use their names and our names and cross the social media together. That's for the kids' bedroom. That was from the living room. Again, different product, different brands in here. Even, this was the message. Was a message to show that you can be quite open-minded, perhaps when it comes to the bathroom or the entrance or any kind of hotel or hospitality environment. So that was our interpretation to really open up the brand, and whoever would see the catalog will, will get a bit more excited and a bit more emotional about it. And to close the circle, we designed a series of accessories like dividing panels, again, different socks, and some vases that could really help anyone to understand that the brand was completely different. So that was our journey, continued journey with Baboon. And then last September, we had the pleasure to work with L Decoration on a cafe during Design Week. We're in September, we're in London, and the brief was to create a cafe that was meant to be a bit different, that was meant to help the visitor of that fair to relax and take the time in a different context, in a different way. So our idea was to, well, first of all, create a floor covered by rugs, so you can actually choose to sit on the floor or sit on the chairs. But actually the chairs were not chairs, they were medical balls, they were Swiss balls, beautifully refined, beautiful hand stitched with leather, but made with leather, covered with leather, but at the same time, it was a different way to sit, to interact. And at the same time, playing with the heights, because it's a festival, you really are kind of having fun around it. So we used the idea of the hanging line, and we placed all the different Baboon wallpapers on it. So that was the look of the entrance of the cafe. And it was very intriguing. It was very attractive. Any kind of visitor passing by this cafe would enter because they really know what was going on. The floor was covered by rugs. You had this Swiss wall to sit on it. The hang line was very dynamic, very playful. So we had also a wall that will actually show what the cafe was all about. L Decoration was celebrating their 30th birthday, so we had to make sure this was very well communicated. And then we have the different stands and different holders for all the catalogs of every exhibitors during the Design Week. And it was very successful because the best results you can see is when people come, visit, interact, spend a good time, and they will remember about that cafe. So it was very pleasant to see how the visitor were actually staying there a lot and just interacting there, or perhaps just taking a break, bringing a friend, just being a bit more inspired from the exhibition. So to conclude this webinar, I'd like to share a couple of more slides. First of all, what are the benefits of getting an art director on board? After this long conversation, we can summarize why I think you should get an art director on board. Well, first of all, when you get the right art director on board, you'll be able to really get a right strategy, a strategy that will take you into the long term. You've got a vision, you've got a way to go. You're finally, the fog is kind of over and you know exactly what you should do. You'll be able to have brand identity. Your brand will have a defined story. You got something really solid that you can implement in every single part of the brand, whether it will be the point of sales, the catalog, the social media, the reception, the office, you name it. The brand is there. It's very, very easy to be identified. Then brand awareness. Well, finally, the brand will stand out. People will remember, oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah. Oh, of course. Is that the brand that did X, Y, and Z? Well, there you go. Now you started to have awareness from your target market. And that moment that the brand becomes a bit more interesting, cooler, the brand becomes something that people are talking about. Well, guess what? You will attract different brands. That's how collaboration will start. And that's how you're going to really benefit from economies of scales, which could be sales, which could be social media, which could be sharing costs for different exhibitions, you name it. And most of all, the sales, in the long term, not really in the long term, it starts actually from the short term, but ultimately we're doing this to increase the sales, and sales are always benefiting when you get an art director on board. Now, when you're ready to think or ready to take that important step that you should get an art director on board, well, these are my top tips on how to make that decision. First of all, in my opinion, the chemistry is key. You're going to spend a lot of time with your art director. You're going to share a lot of confidential information with your art director. You will really need to open up with your art director. So getting the right person is important for you, because you really need to look at the chemistry, because there's no point to get a person on board that you don't really get along. Then you need to have the courage to be different, because we looked at Moy 20 years ago. They were completely different. They were like, what is this all about? And they really had in their mind that the third point is they had a long-term vision. So having a lot of courage and keeping a long-term vision is important. But at the same time, it takes a lot of resilience, because you're going to have a lot of criticism at the beginning, because we all know when we do something different, it's very easy for third parties to criticize or really kind of seed in the dark on you. Are you sure you should do that? Well, yes, I will, because that's my vision, and the resilience is part of my commitment. And last but not least, be humble. When the moment you realize you need another director on board, it's actually quite good, because you need to have the humility to say, okay, I need some external help. I need a professional on board to tell me what I should do and where I should go. So this brings the webinar to the end. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understood the importance of art direction. And to me, it's phenomenal. It's almost like the invisible glue that collects and keeps the brand together. These are our details, our website, our email. If you got any questions or you'd like to know a bit more from us, feel free to be in touch. Thanks again for attending the webinar, and I wish you a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.